Excellent. Okay, good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for joining us for this first in our summer series of meetings. I hope that this is that you enjoy this. It's different for us. We used to do it years ago. We haven't done it in quite a while, so we're giving it a shot this year and hoping it brings in some people who can't normally come to our meetings. So. So it's June, and two important dates are sandwiched between Memorial Day in May, when we honor the sacrifices of our military who fought and died for freedom, and 4th of July, the day we recognize as our freedom from the tyranny of a foreign overlord. Now in June, we celebrate the national holiday of Juneteenth. That's the day we commemorate the ending of slavery. It's a day all of us should celebrate because, as civil rights leader Fannie Lou Hamer said, and many others have adapted, nobody's free until everybody is free. We celebrate this day at a time when freedom is often shouted from the rooftops, but less frequently honestly defended. Along those lines, this year, we will commemorate the second anniversary of the Dobbs decision, also in June, on Monday, the 24th. The Supreme Court ruling that stripped women of our rights to make determinations about our own health, our families, and our lives. I find it rich that the justice who wrote this decision, that dictated what 169 million can do with their bodies, won't tell his wife to take down the distress flag from the front of their home. He has way too much respect for her for that. One thing the past few years has taught me is that we cannot be complacent, because there are people anxious to take away our rights, whether it's what book we read, what medical procedure we can get, or who we decide to share our lives and our love with. Together, we celebrate Juneteenth as a national holiday, but also recognize that our rights will always need to be defended. And in the words of another oft uncredited leader, Hillel, a first-century Jewish scholar, not RFK or Ted Kennedy, said, "If not us, who? If not now, when?" So that's the inspirational part of today's meeting, until the candidates speak. So down to business. I want to open by addressing some attendees' expectations about our meetings that have come to my attention in the past few months. A few people have contacted me and indicated they think we should be able to get through the entire meeting in 1 hour. Believe me, I wish that were so. Since beginning in this position in January 2023, it quickly became apparent that a 1 hour meeting was not possible. Not if we were going to serve food and allow people time to connect and socialize with their friends, which is such an important part of STEM women. A more realistic goal is to finish by 1:30. That's a 1 hour and 15-minute meeting. We open the doors at 11:30, open the lunch line, dinner line by noon, and start the meeting business at 12:15, or today, 6:15. So we do also have a timed agenda. All right. You know, at the actual times that things are going to take. It's like a Christmas wish list. But we try to stick to it. Right now it should be 6:19. Is it 6:19? Yes. we are on track. That's great. So I thank those who raised the question with me. One was anonymous, but the others I responded to personally. And I encourage you, if you have questions about STEM women, things you would like us to do differently, or that we're not doing, we should be doing, please use the table cards on your table, snap that QR code and tell me what you think. We really do read them, pay attention to them. One other housekeeping thing, before you leave the room today, please make sure you have bussed your table. Somebody will come around and pick up any leftover table cards, index cards, pens, or information cards. But everything else that you aren't taking home, if you can put it in the garbage before you leave, that would be a gigantic help. And your board members who are typically here for 45 minutes to an hour after the meeting ends will be very grateful. Okay, next item. When you go home today, you will have an email in your mailbox regarding amended bylaws for DEM women. The email will explain why we are changing the bylaws, the process we will follow to do so, and point out the specific areas of the most significant changes. Only members in good standing, those who have paid their dues as of last Friday, will receive this email and be eligible to vote. You will have 2 weeks to review the changes. On the 20th, you will receive an email with a link to a digital ballot. That ballot will be very simple, approve or not. We're not really looking for an analysis of the things the way you might write them or somebody else might write them, but just a straight yes or no. We worked with Jill Vales, who's a member. I don't think she's here today, who is very experienced working with boards and developing bylaws and policies. And the board had several in-depth discussions. Overall, the changes are to make the organization more transparent and more accountable to you, its members. The biggest change will be how we conduct board elections, which will be coming up in the fall. The amended bylaws establish a digital process for electing board members that allows every member in good standing to vote, not just those who happen to be present in the room in November. Another requires that the executive committee of the board, the elected officers, vote on appointments to board committees. In the past, the president made these decisions alone. Another establishes a third vice president who will have responsibility for advocacy and community action. This is a core of our organizational goals, and we need to ensure we always have a top person, a leader, to manage that. And finally, the new bylaws establish a code of ethics and provide a more clear process for handling serious breaches of that code. I hope you will take the time to review the bylaws because this is your organization. So that brings us to 6:21, right? Oh no, now I'm 2 minutes behind. That's the last time I'm going to announce the timing. So we're going to, we have 2 candidates with us this evening. We're going to talk. This is the first of candidates coming to the meetings. We will get through all of our candidates by October. And we want to make sure that our members and guests can hear from everyone and ask a few questions. We will take a few questions for each of the candidates, 2 or 3, no more than that, using the index cards on your table. So write your question, wave the card around, and somebody I haven't told is supposed to do it yet. We'll come and pick them up. Before I do that, though, I want to just welcome anybody here who is new to DEM Women, who this is their first meeting. You got a little flag sticker, I think. So I'd like to just acknowledge you and welcome you. If you would stand, if this is your first meeting. That's terrific. Welcome. June is also the last month of our Member Get a Member contest. So next month we'll announce the winner of the whopping $100 gift card prize for the member who brings in the most new members. And I'm pretty sure we have a couple of new members with us tonight. So if you wouldn't mind and you would stand up if this is your first meeting as a new member. Maybe I'm wrong. Thank you. And finally, a quick shout out to our elected officials. After embarrassing myself a couple of months ago, I don't try to pick them out of the crowd anymore. So if you are an elected official or have been an elected official, if you would stand for a second. I know Dorothy Dow is almost always here, but this is Wayne County Council. is. So that's gonna, I'm sorry, city council, so that's gonna be hard. Okay, so on to tonight's candidates. Candidates are gonna have 5 minutes to speak, followed by an opportunity to take 2 or 3 questions. I'm going to do them in level of office order today and for future meetings. So our first candidate to speak is Catherine Harvey. Catherine's running for Congressional District 4, and she is also the chair of the Spartanburg Democratic Party. She and Amanda, who just had her baby on Friday, by the way, for those of you who don't know, she had a boy. Everybody's happy and healthy. They have worked very close together on a number of initiatives, including Priority 6. And Catherine, it's not today, but it just had a birthday.
The day Amanda has faith.
Oh my God. There's synergy here, I'm telling you. There is synergy here. So let's welcome her and find out how we can help her put William Timmons on the unemployment line.
Thank you, Greenville. I'm always so impressed with the DEM women meetings. I keep telling Spartanburg, as soon as I have room for a 4th job, I'm going to organize the Spartanburg DEM women in a fashion like this, because it's so important, and you come out for all the right reasons and for each other, and you have a growing membership, which is very impressive. So thank you again for having me. My name is Catherine Harvey, and I am going to be your future Congresswoman.
That's right.
I put that in the universe every chance I get. And, you know, Laura said she wants to make sure that Timmons is on the unemployment line, but we are watching this race tomorrow, y'all, because it is that close. And the more folks I talk to, the more folks say they had no idea that Morgan was going to make up the ground. He did. And you can tell Timmons is scared because he had the governor up here today to stump with him. And I think what we're seeing is exactly what we've prepared for, that there is a possibility that some of these seats fall further right, or that some of these primaries do not unseat an extreme incumbent. And that is exactly why we have to have good Democrats on the other side. I could not imagine if this race ended tomorrow. I can tell you that right now. And it's incumbent upon all of us to support our candidates in 2024. And I know we have a room full of supporters, but if I'm honest, it wasn't even a choice for me. We have to have very prominently challenged races right now. We have to, because we also have not seen a year like we have ahead of us. The variables of this year line up for Democratic candidates. The issues that are on the table, the extreme nature of our Republican candidates, the disarray that party is in, the folks in the middle who nobody is really talking to, that we have an opportunity to truly go out and connect with, which is an integral part of our campaign this year and many of the other candidates up and down the ballot. We have stopped talking to one another, and that is why we are where we are. And I think this is a moment, I mean, Laura, you help me count. How many folks are we going to have running on the Democratic slate in Greenville after the primary? Over 15? Yeah, close to 20 Democrats in Greenville County. And in Spartanburg, in large part because of the support we've had from Greenville and the infrastructure we've been able to learn and build because of Greenville, we have 9 Democrats running in Spartanburg County for like the first time in history. That is a lot of choice on a ballot in a year where we need it. And it's our job to make sure we're turning out the vote on the periphery while our parties turn out the vote of our core voters. And I believe we're going to see more voter engagement this year than we ever have. I truly believe that. We just have so many incredible candidates up and down the ballot. For some of you who don't know me, I was born and raised in Spartanburg. I went to Spartanburg High School in District 7. My parents were one of the first, I guess, classes of special educators that Spartanburg brought to the community, and they taught for a combined 60 years in District 7 in public school. Please. And everything that I bring to my work, they brought to their work, right? Compassion and understanding and a love of education and a want to connect with the community and to show up in an altruistic way, right? And that's exactly what I bring to my work, both from a nonprofit and a political level. I run a firm in Spartanburg that supports nonprofits in the Upstate and across South Carolina. We work with advocacy organizations and in local politics. It's part of what brought me to raise my hair for the chair of the local Democratic Party, because we weren't community building in that respect. We weren't folding people in and giving folks a home and building on a foundation of our democratic values, even though Spartanburg is a wildly philanthropic community and we work across aisles every day, just like Greenville does, towards a greater good. But we weren't working as Democrats in that community the way I thought we could. And just this last March, in our last convention, we had over 200 people show up. It was the largest convention in 30 years. We have our 9 candidates on the ballot, and more folks are showing up every month to learn what we're building. And that's because we have held steady. It will take a minute to build the confidence and the understanding of how this process can work when we have this many folks running, but I believe this is the year to do it. And there's too much at stake right now. We cannot afford another 2 years of Timmons and surely not of Morgan. We cannot afford 2 years of anybody rubber stamping Donald Trump. We simply cannot afford it. And I think that we have lost servant leadership in our elected office. We really, truly have. You cannot tell me that you can represent a community and you're not even out in it. You just can't. And showing up to take a photo on the bridge to put on your campaign website is not meeting your community where they are. This office does not belong to him. It belongs to you. And we get to decide who represents us. And I think that we're going to see a lot more people waking up to that this year. And that's my job. It's my job as a candidate to make sure they do. I can't imagine a single person in this community that isn't affected by policy that's being passed right now. It's just, it's the truth. And it means there's a connection point for so many people that perhaps there wouldn't be in other election cycles. And I think we're going to use that to our benefit. You know, I'm looking out at this room and I'm thinking about how many networks you all have and how connected in you are with your faith-based organizations and your communities and your sewing circles and your gardening groups and your book clubs. These are all places that we would love to be invited into to have conversation. It's so critical to be able to plug in, to hear from folks directly in the community. And I, for one, am not going to just show up in October and ask for your vote. We're going to be working all summer to meet folks where they are. It's a learning for all of us, and it needs to happen now. I also think we're in a real pivotal moment where there's so much on the line right now. If we don't have somebody who can stay true to themselves, who is our elected official, what can't waffle? And I think we've shown who we have in office right now is very temperamental. And we just can't afford it anymore. Certainly some of the issues that are at the top of my platform are reproductive freedom and rights to protect women. Very You know, I'll share this. I was actually down in Charleston meeting with a group of women Friday night, and a woman had just moved here from Utah. She's 45. Roe had just fallen, and she said, I went and got my tubes tied because I was so terrified about what was happening in South Carolina. And how many other of those stories are probably out there because people are being forced into decisions that they ordinarily wouldn't make because of bad policy. Education's at the top of this platform. Smart growth is at the top of this platform. And Greenville people don't need me to harp on that because you're experiencing it. But we also, in this moment of incredible economic growth, and we're finally feeling it in Spartanburg in a significant way, we have got to take care of our people too. And I think that's been lost a little bit along the way too, especially from a federal level. It is the job of your woman, to bring home the bacon, to support programs that help people. And it's not happening right now. And there's so much more that can be coming down to the upstate. And that's what we really need to be focusing on. And this is going to be quite the uphill, regardless of the challenger on the other side. We know that because they haven't seen, I don't think, like an inherently organized, strong competitor on the Democratic side with this much energy around them in a minute. You know, we need somebody that's ready to challenge Timmons, that's going to go toe to toe, that's not going to let him talk in headlines and false narratives, that's not going to acquiesce right now. And that's exactly what my team and myself plan to do. It's just too critical to call out falseness when we see it and when we hear it, because it's rampant. And it'll truly take all of us. I'm going to close by saying this. We had our Greenville launch last week, and it was really a gathering before the primary, and over 75 people showed up, and we raised almost $10,000, and it was a room full of folks. Thank you. It looked like a Barbie themed birthday party for a 42-year-old had exploded in the room. Shauna was there, she knows. But it was a room full of folks, and I didn't know 65% of them. And I want that to keep happening. I want to walk into rooms full of people that I do not know so we can start connecting early. And I'm asking for all of your help in charting that path forward in Greenville. I've got the most work to do here. This is my third night and 6 days in Greenville, and I'll do it every night if you'll invite me. And I'm just thrilled to be on this journey, to be the top of the ticket with some of the most phenomenal candidates I think the Upstate has seen on our Democratic slate, and to be here with you tonight. This is a beautiful way to be charting into the general. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, I got one question. Does anybody else have a question? Oh, thanks, Jim. Okay, this is from Mary McCarthy, and she says, I saw your interview with Fox Carolina. I was delighted and thought, it's not a question. Thought you did an excellent job. Best of luck.
Oh.
Questions?
That's the easy one to answer. Thank you.
Do you want Dems to vote for Timmons or Adam Morgan, or not vote for either in the Republican primary? I, as your local party chair and candidate, cannot answer that question. I get it 10 times a day right now. I will just say that a more competitive race is certainly one when you're not challenging the incumbent, and I'll just leave it at that. Yeah, but thank you for asking. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, thank you so much, Catherine. That was great. I'm sure we are all looking forward to getting out on the street and on the phones and doing what we can to help you get elected. Our next candidate is Bran Fowler. Bran is running for State House District 22. That's Jason Elliott's old district. He vacated the seat to run for state senate. So Bran will be, is also waiting for the primary results, because he'll be either up against Paul Wickenheimer or Stan Soufalakis. If I mispronounced that, too bad.
Good evening. My name is Bran Fowler, and I'm running for South Carolina State House District 22. I'm running because, as I'm sure a lot of you feel, I think that we as a state are just underachieving. You know, South Carolina is fairly unique in the world and very, very special in the country. There are so few places where you can wake up in the morning and be at 3,000 feet of elevation, looking across beautiful mountainsides, and then hop in your car and before lunchtime be sitting on a beach looking at the Atlantic Ocean. You know, we have so many wonderful, vibrant communities, so much great history, so many great natural resources in this state. But despite all that, we just can't seem to get it together. We just keep seeing ourselves slip further and further behind. And I would put to you that it's not that we can't get it together. It's that our government won't get it together. We have too many people, like has been mentioned, who go to Columbia and they would rather play at being a legislator than actually legislate. It's gotten to the point that when a law is finally passed, not only is it not helpful, it's often a net negative. I don't have to remind anybody in this room what's happened in this state to bodily autonomy. I don't have to remind anybody in this room about the message that it sends to people in the LGBTQ community when we pass hateful bills banning surgeries that don't even take place in this state. I don't have to remind anybody in this room what it says to the victim of a crime in one of the states with the highest rates of gun violence in the country, that we think the answer is more guns. I don't have to remind anybody in this room what it says to the least of these, what it says to the poor, what it says to the downtrodden, when not only do we refuse to expand Medicaid, but we won't even feed a hungry child because it's summertime. This is ridiculous, and this has got to stop. So I think we can start the stopping of it in South Carolina House District 22. As has been mentioned, it's Jason Elliott's old House seat. It is, generally speaking, for those of y'all familiar with Greenville's geography, North Main, up Wade Hampton, out to about Edwards Road. It does include our friends at Bob Jones, and then down 385 to just across 85. That district in 2020 had about 26,000 voters vote. Donald Trump won that district by barely 2,300 votes. I became a lawyer because I can't do math. But one of those numbers is significantly smaller than the other. Okay. In the Republican presidential primary this past spring, Nikki Haley won that district. That district is over 52% college educated, and it's over 52% female. These people are going to be open to a good candidate. These people want good government. These people know what good government looks like. They know how things ought to work. They don't want someone to go to Columbia and be a disruptor. They don't want somebody to go to Columbia and be an embarrassment. They want somebody who's going to go down there and bring home the bacon. They want somebody who's going to make this state better. They want somebody who's going to make this community better. And I think with your help, we can get that message out and we can win this race. So there's two things I need from you. First of all, right now, I need your money. Okay. Evidently, they think this race is going to cost about $100,000. And I can tell you right now that $1 raised in June goes further than $10 raised in October. Okay. So we can make the investment now. It's going to pay dividends later. Later, I'm going to need the other thing. I'm going to need some shoe leather from everybody in this room. We're going to have to get out and we're going to have to knock on doors. The best way we can get this message out is by people talking to people, by neighbors talking to neighbors. And if we do that, I think we can win this race.
Okay. So just so you know, all the candidates have been invited and reminded for specific dates on the schedule. And I will switch people around. I've already told them that to accommodate conflicts because they got a lot of things going on. But not all candidates have responded. So if somebody that you're expecting to hear from never is here, it's not because I didn't ask them. It's because they never got back to me. So we'll see who responds and attends. Okay, now on to the main show. This is Pride Month. When we celebrate our LGBTQ brothers and sisters, the diversity they bring to our community and their contributions. But this is not a great year for celebrating. If you're LGBTQ, you've had a pretty rough legislative year.
Amen.
As one who has spent my life in communications where language is a major tool of your trade, I am befuddled by the term Freedom Caucus. I just can't quite figure out where the freedom is in that group. There is punishment, there's retribution, hate and discrimination, but not so much freedom. In fact, it seems that everything Republican legislators have put their shoulders into this term and the term before has been taking something away from people. It's hard to argue that the legislation affecting the LGBTQ community has anything to do with solving a problem, unless you consider that the problem is their very existence. I'm not sure what our legislators think will happen when young people struggling with their identity are denied the opportunity to seek help from medical professionals. I wonder how their parents will feel when they are unable to get expert advice to help them navigate through this maze of emotions, doubts, anger, hopelessness, and hope. Are they thinking that people will see how hard it's going to be and decide not to be gay anymore? I don't really think that works. It seems unlikely. So if that's out, I can only assume that they are just punishing people for their gender identities and their parents for, I guess, allowing it. Our speaker today is on the front lines of these issues. Susan Ward is president of the Greenville Chapter of PFLAG. That's the largest organization in the United States dedicated to supporting, educating, and advocating for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people, and those who love them. She also works closely with the Freedom in Libraries advocacy group, fighting book bans and book relocation, another fun thing, in Greenville County libraries. She grew up in rural northeastern North Carolina, attended journalism school at USC in Columbia, yay for journalism, and met her husband there. They spent 10 years in Charleston, where she worked at the Johnson & Wales University and at the Post and Courier, while he completed medical training at MUSC. They moved to Greenville in 2003 and have raised 2 kids here. In addition to PFLAG and FLAG, Susan runs a family foundation focused on mental health and suicide prevention, teaches fitness classes at Greenville Indoor Rowing, which I may take. Yeah, me too. They moved to Greenville I did that part. And volunteers with Recraft Creative Reuse Center, which I don't know much about. Today, South Carolina is the only state in the country that has not addressed hate crimes legislatively. But progressive cities in the state are doing better, including Greenville, which approved a hate crime ordinance in January 2020 and has raised its rating with the Human Rights Campaign this year up to 4th in the state behind Myrtle Beach, Columbia, and Charleston. So that is a little bit of a bright spot for us. But into this climate, Susan, Ward, and PFLAG work tirelessly to build a vibrant and positive community. Thank you for being here, Susan. You have the floor.
My fan club is here in the front. Thank you all for having me. Thank you for explaining about PFLAG. Our Greenville chapter has been serving the community since 1992. We're very proud of that. We also have chapters in Spartanburg and Anderson. We offer support, education, and advocacy. So we have 2 support meetings per month. We have one that is open to everyone and one that's specifically for parents and family members of transgender, non-binary, and gender expansive kids of all ages. During our main support meeting on the first Wednesday of the month, we also host Queer Joy Craft Night, which that fits in with my volunteering at Recraft Creative Youth Center, which I'm not going to talk about tonight, but if you want to know, please come talk to me afterwards because I will evangelize about them all day. So we have support circle in one room, we have crafts going on in another room. You can come to one or both, or drift back and forth. That's all good. So as Laura mentioned, I am a mom of two. My oldest child is transgender. My younger child died by suicide, and I'm here in honor of one and in memory of the other. I have my PFLAG pin on one side. I have my Super Mario pin on the other side. My younger son was a huge fan of Super Mario. And so a few years back, I bought these pins for myself and my husband and our surviving son that we could wear whenever we wanted to have him with us at an event that we were going to. So let's get started. So as I said, my oldest son is transgender, although he had not come to that conclusion yet when he first came out as a lesbian his junior year of high school in 2016. I mentioned it to my therapist, who said, you should check out a PFLAG meeting. And so we went to the very next meeting. That was in April of 2016. And we continued to go throughout the rest of his junior year and all of his senior year. So as Matt was learning more about his identity and growing more confident, Raider was beginning to struggle. He was in 10th grade that year when Matt was a senior. Both of our kids actually, and both of the parents, are introverts in our family, but Raider really struggled making connections with people, and was very distressed and insecure about his future. He was always brilliant and creative and funny, but his grades started to fall, and we didn't know how to help motivate him to try to get those grades up. So we tried punishment, which did not work at all. And so at that point, we started to see a series of professionals. We went to the guidance counselor, and he talked to a couple of different talk therapy providers. We saw the pediatrician. We had a day-long appointment with a psychologist where he was evaluated for all sorts of neuroatypical conditions, none of which he strictly fit into the descriptions of. And finally, we saw a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist prescribed some medication, which may or may not have helped, may or may not have contributed to his suicide. We'll never know. But so he started on medicine. And when he did, I read him the black box warning that said that young people who took this medicine might find that they were having suicidal thoughts. And I told him, if this happens to you, I want you to be assured that it's just chemicals doing stuff in your brain, and you need to come to me and your dad and tell us, and we'll find a way to fix it. We didn't leave him alone for several weeks. We were one of the members of our family was with him all the time. Raider said he didn't feel like the medicine was helping, but at the follow-up visit with the psychiatrist, he said he felt like things were going okay and we could back off the vigilance a little bit. And so we did. We started to leave him at home for a couple hours at a time. That actually went fine for a couple of months. And he was back to programming computer games online. That was the thing that he liked to do. And so when I would leave the house, I would go see him in the computer room, and I would tell him where I was going and how long I was going to be gone, and where Matt was and where Dad was and how long they were going to be gone, and that I had my phone so he could call or text me. And I would ask him if he was okay. And what I was really asking is, are you feeling suicidal? But I was afraid to say that. And so I would say, are you okay? And every time he told me that he was okay. And so Matt, who was still identifying as female, had just graduated from high school the 1st of June of 2017. And he and I went to the PFLAG meeting the next Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month. And at the end of the PFLAG meeting, my phone rang, and it was my husband. And we don't ever call each other. We're a texting sort of family. When he was in his medical training, that was in the early days of pagers. And so that was the beginning of our early marriage communication, was by pager. And so we text each other. And when I saw that call, I knew that something was wrong. And while Matt and I had been in that PFLAG celebrating his high school graduation, and I'll never forget, I specifically said to the crowd, some of those people are sitting here right in front of me, I said, we have raised this one to adulthood successfully. And we had. And he's doing great. But while that was happening, his brother was at home dying. And so William had come home. He had found that Rader had died by suicide, and that was 7 years ago this past Friday. Thursday of this week is his birthday. He was about to turn 16 then. He would be going on 23 now. I've learned a lot about suicide since then. And one myth that I want to dispel is that asking about suicide will put the idea in someone's head. Studies show to the contrary, that directly asking about suicide can be life-saving. Asking someone if they're thinking of suicide, it breaks the stigma that it's something that's too scary to talk about. And it shows that you are, reassures the person that you're someone safe they can share their thoughts with. So please take that with you as you go tonight. If there's anyone that you are concerned about, please just ask them. At the end of that summer, with some hesitation over whether he was ready and much parental trepidation, we sent Matt off to college at USC. We had made sure that he was in with a therapist. And so, bless him, he texted me every single day for, I don't even remember how long that went on. But he was in contact with me every day. That meant everything. That was really what I needed right then. So he had left us with an empty nest 2 years earlier than we should have had one. He spent Thanksgiving with us at the beach and then came home for Christmas break. And that's when he came out to us as transgender, 6 months after we had lost his brother. And while we responded well to his face, privately, we were confused, we were angry, and we were terrified. We had not seen any signs that he might be transgender before that point. And I knew the suicide risk for LGBTQ plus youth was far greater than for their cisgender straight peers. And it really scared me to know that my child was a part of this community with such a great risk after having lost one child. So I had never heard stories about trans people other than those who came out when they were very young and insisted that they were trans from the time they were small children. That was not the case in our family. So it made me wonder, is my child actually trans? And I was skeptical. Was it some kind of weird grief response? I wasn't sure what to do. And at the time, despite my involvement in PFLAG, I only knew one couple in the Greenville area who had a transgender family member, and their child was very young at the time. Matt was 18 at this point. And I also had one online friend who had a child Matt's age who had come out as exploring their gender. And so I contacted her because I had no idea what to do. 7 years later, we have a huge support group here in Greenville. We have more than 100 family members of trans people in our support group. I'm actively working to connect families of trans kids from throughout the state with each other to make sure that no one feels alone and adrift the way that I did when Matt came out. And we had no idea, how to respond, how to be the best parents that we could to him. So, excuse me, I discovered my passion at the intersection of suicide prevention and LGBTQ plus advocacy. And that's what brings me into this room, standing in front of you all today. So here are some of the most important things I learned at the beginning when Matt had first come out as transgender. LGBTQ is not just one thing. So we're going to talk about 3 separate areas here. Sexual orientation, which is whom you're attracted to. Gender identity, which is your innate sense of your own gender. Those are 2 separate, unrelated things, part of the LGBTQ umbrella. And so while we assumed that he was a girl when he was born, Matt is and always has been a boy, even when he didn't realize it himself. His gender identity is male. That's why I use the pronouns he and him when I talk about him, even when I tell you that he came out as a lesbian. Some folks are non-binary, which means that they may exist in between male and female identities, not identifying firmly with one or the other. And regarding their sexual orientation, just as with cisgender people, those of us who are not trans, people who are under the trans umbrella can have the same range of sexual orientations that we can. Some of them are attracted to people of their same gender. Some of them are attracted to people of the opposite gender. Some are attracted to people regardless of gender. Some experience no sexual attraction at all. That's what being asexual is. So we've talked about sexual orientation. We've talked about gender identity. The third is gender expression. And every one of us has our own gender expression. It could include how you style your hair, whether or not you wear makeup, what kind of clothes you choose that make you feel comfortable and confident in yourself. Some of you may know men who wear nail polish. Not all women have long hair. And so gender expression is separate from sexual orientation and gender identity. Someone might express their gender in a way that seems non-conforming to you. And if my son wears earrings or if he wears clothing from the women's department, it doesn't mean that he's not really a man. Your interpretation of someone's gender expression can't necessarily tell you their sexual orientation or their gender identity. 3 separate things. So that's Transgender 101. You all have graduated. Thank you for listening to that. Some of you may have known those things already, but I started at the very beginning when my son came out, so I figured we should at least cover the basic ground. So PFLAG's 3 areas of focus are support, which I told you about our meetings that we have, education, some of which I've hopefully just done, and advocacy. And over the past 2 years, I've come to take my advocacy really seriously. PFLAG was my entry point, but let me speak now to you from my position as a mom. While I have a lot of interests and concerns, including gun control and abortion rights, I've had to narrow my personal focus to 2 areas. Freedom to read here in Greenville County, that's what I do in my district, and transgender rights at the State House. So I began speaking at library board meetings and county council meetings in fall of 2022 when the Greenville County GOP issued a resolution calling on county council to ban LGBTQ plus material, calling it sexually explicit and inappropriate for children. So after appearing at many of the same meetings as the folks from Freedom and Libraries Advocacy Group, I was invited to join them. Their acronym is FLAG, which I know is confusing. We have PFLAG, we have FLAG. I'm in both. I've worked closely with them ever since, and we are a dynamic group, working not tirelessly. We do sometimes get very tired, right, Eliza? But working to push back against censorship at the Greenville County libraries, coming from the library board and the library administration. We love our librarians, but their bosses and the board have done some terrible things. In February of this year, they passed a policy codifying viewpoint-based discrimination by removing all books that discuss the existence of transgender people from the children's section. FLAG continues to fight for freedom to read in our public libraries. I could tell you much more about the things we've done. Hopefully some of you saw on the news our rainbow paper chain petition. That was a joy to put together. And we are continuing to fight with the library board to do the right thing. Let me pivot to the State House. At the State House this year, and I could go on and on about this, but I'm going to try to keep this part really short. I fought against our legislators who chose to deny South Carolina's transgender young people the right to medically necessary care. Sadly, our governor signed that bill into law. So we now have a coalition of organizations, including PFLAG and many other organizations, who are working to help families figure out how to get their children the care they need. If you want to keep up with these issues, Laura has told me that she can send out an email after the meeting that will include, I'll list all of these organizations that I'm talking about and the links, and you can get on their mailing lists. And so you can find out what's happening in all of these different areas. I've been working closely with the ACLU as well. There is so much good work that they're doing, and they have many prongs of attack, very few of which I've found that I don't have the energy to be involved in all of the fights. I've had to pick my fights. So I'll take some questions here in just a moment, but before that, I have a call to action for you. Actually, I have 3. Number one, according to the Trevor Project, just one supportive adult in the life of an LGBTQ young person can reduce their risk of suicide by 40%. One supportive adult. Be that adult for someone. Number two, identify an area where you're passionate about advocacy. Find out when your local boards and councils meet and commit to attend what you can. County council, city councils, library board, school board. Some of these meetings take place during weekdays, so attendance is not always possible. You can still build a relationship with your representative. You can call, email, or meet with them to get to know them and make sure they know what's important to you. Recognize you can't do everything. Let that motivate you to focus your attention and energy. And lastly, vote in local primaries and elections. Using freedom to read as an example, both the school board, whom we elect, and the library board, appointed by county council, whom we elect, are engaging in censorship by redaction, restriction, relocation, and removal of books. County Councilman Steve Shaw in District 20 and Stan Juvelakis in 23 led the fear-mongering about LGBTQ books, intimidating a few moderate council members into voting to keep the existing library board. The council rejected 50 new, highly qualified board members in a 7-5 vote. With just one more moderate voice, the council could have been persuaded to vote in new board members for the library. Local elections count. Thank you very much.
You, Susan, you got some questions for Susan? Index cards, but go ahead.
I'm just curious how Matt's doing now and whether he's been an advocate in his university setting.
So he graduated from USC in 2021 from the Honors College, never having made any grade lower than an A. Wow. This is immediately after he had lost his brother, and while transitioning, the child has focus. So he is self-supporting now. He lives in Beaufort with his partner. He's having some health issues not related to being transgender. He started having seizures last year, which is very scary for a parent. We're dealing with it. He hasn't had any seizures since he started on medication, but he is self-supporting. He is thriving. We see him as often as we can. He'll be back in Greenville at the end of July. We're going to the Peace Center to see Carrie Elways from the Princess Bride movie. They're going to show the movie and Carrie Elways is going to speak. So he's coming home for that. But no, he's doing very well. Thank you for asking. So he turned 25 this February, and we are so proud. He was involved in advocacy at USC, and he has been involved. I don't know how much you guys hear the news out of Beaufort, but there's been a lot of freedom to read stuff happening down there. He's been involved with those folks as well.
Well, everybody else is writing down their questions. I have one. What kind of legislation are you anticipating, either on the positive or on the negative side, in the next session?
So I think anything that would be I wish I had my friend Josh from the ACLU here, because he could just throw all of that right out there. I think anything that we've seen happening in surrounding states is likely to come up here in South Carolina. We actually were here's the one good point about the terrible law that they just passed about transgender healthcare. We actually were the last state in our area to pass that law. So we did hold them off for a while. Yeah, I think things are just not looking good for transgender people. There are other things coming up regarding DEI. There are a lot of people moving on a lot of fronts to try to restrict the rights of various groups of people, which blows my mind. Who thinks that's a good idea, that we should take rights away from people? Yeah. I don't get that. Yeah, I know the ACLU and South Carolina for United for Justice and Equality and the Southern Equality Campaign for Southern Equality. They'll all be on top of what's happening at the State House. And if you sign up for their emails, then you too will be on top of what is happening and can contact your legislators to let them know that you don't think it's great.
Other questions? Not quite ready. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
That was really, really terrific.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. On your tables, you have, this is a good time for this. You have a flyer. United Way is having a school tools event. And we're asking that you donate some money to us so we can buy books. Apparently, the selection of books is pretty broad. So we can buy LGBTQ books, we can buy African American books, we can buy all kinds of cool books, and Jen is going to be the buyer. And make sure that kids in Greenville County schools get them in their backpacks. So please shoot this QR code and donate what you can, and we'll provide some books to our kids in need. I'm actually ahead of the game today, naturally. I do want to say one thing about candidates. These candidates that we're hearing from today, that we'll be hearing from in the future, they don't elect themselves. We have to do it. We have to get out there. We have to knock on doors, as Brand said. We've got to make phone calls. We've got to donate money so they have the communication tools they need. We have quite a few candidates out there. We have the priority 6 candidates and then protect 6 candidates. And we have a lot of work to do. So I encourage everybody to please look in the GCDP's website under events. Hopefully we'll have candidate events in there. We have a lot of candidate events for Shauna Johnson, who I see is here today. And I know some are coming from Taylor, and I'm sure there'll be some coming from Brand. So go there, look and see what you can do, get involved with the campaign, because we are the ones who will make that happen.
This is a relevant question.
Question?
Yeah.
You have a question? Hey. Okay, I just want to know if everyone who is running for a Democratic seat is really a Democrat and not a secret Republican. And this is a question for both parties. We need to know that who we put in office are going to work for we the people. I don't really know how to answer that question. In truth, I think the answer is you really don't know. You are dependent on what people say about what they're going to do, and then what needs to happen is we have to hold their feet to the fire to do what they said they were going to do. I came across kind of an interesting statistic recently while I was researching something. And the state of South Carolina in 2001 achieved this status called a trifecta, which is one party owns the governorship, the state house, and the Senate. We have had our trifecta for longer than any other state in the country without it ever once changing hands. Nothing has changed hands, not one branch, not the governorship, not the state house, not the state Senate. So when we are voting for people, I personally, if you've heard me talk before, you know that I personally do not vote for Republicans, but lots of people do. And whoever it is you're voting for, if they're Republican, you are putting them in office, not for a 2-year term that you can get them out of. You're putting them in office for the rest of their lives, for as long as they want to stay there. So we got to think about that when we vote. And I don't know if somebody has a better answer than me. I'm sure they do. Bran?
speaking personally, I can say that one, my life sure would have been a whole lot easier if I could just tolerate a little bit more bullshit. And then two, back in the winter of 2009, after a long night of not drinking water, college sophomore Brandon Fowler got up and drove all the way to Washington D.C. to go to Barack Obama's first inauguration. There's my butterflies. And in three, as Linda was nice enough to remind me, even though I asked y'all for money, I didn't think you could give it to me. On your table, there's little phone cards. You can scan the QR code. We are also having our first big event on June 26th at Judson Mill at 6 p.m. June 26th at Judson Mill at 6 p.m. Pay attention to social media, where I admittedly need to post more. Hope to see you all there.
Also, while we're talking about things on your table, there are quite a few little odds and ends there. There's the repeal the ban cards. If anybody here has not yet signed the repeal the ban petition, I hope you will take one of those cards and do so. And for all of us who have signed that petition, please go the next step. Ask 5 people if they would sign the petition, and then ask them to get their 5 people to sign the petition. Let's get that exponential growth going. This petition campaign is very important, and we need to increase our numbers significantly so we can all have a hand in that. There are also cards on the table for them women that have QR codes on the back, so you can, if you're new, you can learn more about the organization. And there's a couple of ways you can communicate with us on table cards. So I think that that is about it, except for picking the 50-50. And while Mary is coming up here with that, or I'll come over there. Next month, we're going to be talking about immigration. I'm told this is the #1 issue in the country, so I expect huge audience. Jessica Wallace, who is an immigration attorney and the chair of the Hispanic Alliance's legal group, will be our speaker, and I'm really looking forward to that. I want to thank everybody for coming. Have a safe drive home. I look forward to seeing you next time. And I am 10 minutes early.